Are you surfing on YouTube or Twitter like every single day trying to find the next 100x altcoin gem? Well, I hate to break it to you, man. That's not how you're going to find it. In fact, that's actually the worst time to find a token because usually that's the biggest sell signal. The reason why is because if it's public on YouTube, everyone is finding it, it's trending, everyone's talking about it, everyone on Twitter is talking about it, it's everywhere. Who else is left to get in and buy your bags? There are 3 different tools that I use personally in order to find the next 100x gem. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I just show you guys the tools that I use and what I do in order to find these different crypto projects. Being that I'm a DeFi guy, one of the very first places I go and I like to use is DeFi Llama. Now, if you already know about DeFi Llama, you know the sauce, you know how to play around with it. But if you don't, what you can do is you can filter by different chains, you can filter by airdrops, treasuries, or it's basically got everything all in one on the DeFi hub. This is a really useful tool as long as you know how to use it. So let me break down how to use this and give you guys an example. That's typically the best way to describe something. The first protocol I'm going to talk about is Velodrome. And the reason why I chose Velodrome over several other different protocols and the catalyst that I was able to get from it. The first thing was with Optimism, they were having a airdrop. Now, airdrops are big for different chains for a couple of reasons. One is they attract liquidity and bring in TVL. 2, after people get this stimmy check, they want to spend it on other protocols. So with that in mind, I was like, all right, so we have the catalyst, money coming in, and this money needs to find a place to go. So I looked at Velodrome, and I'm like, this is an interesting protocol. Well, before I went into that, I looked at the protocols that were on Optimism. Now, Curve, yeah, whatever. Uniswap, whatever. Aave, that's awesome, cool, whatever. Synthetics, OG coin, may get some love, may or may not, but it's a larger market cap coin. I'm not expecting to get a 100x out of it. Then you had something like Sony Finance. Oh, that's cool. I remember the Guys Fork over on Phantom that made several multiples. So that could be something that is potentially good. Then you have Beethoven Finance. That was already over on Phantom. It may or may not do something. Still something to keep on the radar. And you look at all these different protocols, and in particular, I was looking for the native protocols, as in ones that were only on one chain. Now, why one chain? Because their liquidity isn't fractioned, and it's something that I can focus on more. So Beats was interesting, but it was already on Phantom. So I kind of struck it off the list. I'm like, this probably isn't going to be that 100x that I'm looking for. Curve, 12 chains, Beefy, 20 chains, Uniswap, 6 chains, Aave, 8 chains, Synthetics, 2 chains. 2 chains? I'm going to pass on this. I mean, yeah, I still hold some of the tokens, but we're just talking about this example in general. So I narrowed it down to Velodrome, and I narrowed it down to Sony Finance. Now, Sony Finance is a lending protocol similar to Aave, but the difference is what they did for their flywheel is they capitalized on the Velodrome tokenomics in order to increase the flywheel and increase the bribes and increase revenue for stakeholders. So we're not going to get into Sony Finance for this example. The first one I want to show you is Velodrome. I like the solidly models. The forks were doing well. In fact, for the most part of 2023, solidly forks were massively outperforming the rest of the market, ending up at over 800 million in TVL for all of the forks. But going back to Velodrome, I was like, all right, this is cool, this is interesting. Now I need some catalysts and figure out what's up. I played around with the Velodrome protocol, and this is what it looks like. I like it. It's easy to use, and if you don't want to have exposure to any tokens, you can simply lend out or deposit some stablecoins in the LP farm, earn 15%, or you can do some ETH tokens, 5%, yada, yada, yada. Pretty self-explanatory, easy to understand, easy to use. I liked using the protocols. I like to be able to come over and claim some rewards, sell them if I wanted to, or recompound them, yada, yada, yada. I enjoy and I like using the protocol, so chances are that others will enjoy using it too. So first was the catalyst and having a native protocol on that chain, because the catalyst for this situation was the Optimism airdrop with liquidity flowing in. Second is, did I enjoy using it and did I like it? Well, yeah, I did. So chances are others will enjoy using it and liking it too. Third, how are the tokenomics? The tokenomics, in my opinion, for the Solidly model has somewhat of a sustainability. The reason being is that the farmers over here, they're earning this APR. They aren't getting any of these swap fees. However, on the other side, the guys who are voting on these different pools, they're going to be earning a form of bribes as well as the swap fees that happen on the protocol. And protocols are incentivized to bribe the velodrome or any of these Solidly dexes is because they're getting liquidity at a cheaper rate, whereas if they were to pay people by giving them the form of the incentive token, they're actually going to be losing more than they would actually be earning. And you can see here a lot of the protocols are actually capitalizing on this. As you can see, some of these pools, $37,000 in bribes, $12,000, $7,000, and this isn't even around bribe time. When it gets around the Wednesday, which is bribe time for that week, that's when the bribes are actually way more increased and a lot higher. Protocols are doing this, TLDR, reason being is they're getting cheaper liquidity. So like if I was to be like Sushi and I have Sushi and ETH, I would have to pay a lot of money in order to get that pool. Why? Because I'd pay in the Sushi token. Now there's a problem with this because it's a pool 2 token. If you have ETH and Sushi and I'm paying people in Sushi, that token that's being emitted are what people have to buy. So if there are no new buyers coming in to buy that token and deposit into that pool, as a protocol itself, if it's not in a growing market, I'm basically just printing my token to an oblivion. Because as people are coming over there to buy my token, deposit it into the pool, it's juicing the price, which the APRs go up, increases more people, bring them to come and provide liquidity. But eventually you get to the point to where it's too big and the APRs become diluted. And after they become so low, because now there's no more people buying that token, the price of the token drops. Because you have all these farmers getting that Sushi token, or whatever that token is, and dumping it. So Velodrome created a better model for these protocols by creating this liquidity hub, where instead of having protocols emit their own token, they would come over here and get liquidity at a cheaper rate. So we have the narrative, which is optimism airdrop, and second is you have the native protocol, so that's 1A, 1B. Second is the protocol itself. Do I enjoy doing it? Do I like using it? The answer to the question is yes. Third is, okay, well, how are the tokenomics and is it sustainable and is it something that is probable? Yes, it is something that is more sustainable and more probable than other protocols. And as you can see here, this is why the TVL and the liquidity. And as you can see here, this is why the TVL grew to where it did, and it was able to sustain a big amount. And especially with the OP grant reward, if liquidity starts to leave, they can incentivize users to stake. Now, if all of what I just said to you doesn't really make any sense, that's okay. At least you can see here that Velodrome was one of those protocols that was pretty successful. So you can actually copy and paste this template into another situation. Hence why we had the Layer 1 narratives back in 2021 when people went to farm on Polygon, Avalanche, Phantom, and they just rotated through all of those and they were able to generate a lot of money. So we see Velodrome and Optimism, the Solidly flywheel was something successful. So let's take a look at some of the other forks. An example of one of those is Equalizer. This is on Phantom. Equalizer was one of those protocols that it's a lower market cap, but is it something that's able to capitalize and grow on this? Well, potentially. Phantom came out with the narrative that, hey, look, bro, we have like a 30 to 40 year runway. Well, that's a narrative for people to be like, whoa, Phantom, it's going to be around for 2023, 2024. It's going to be around in the future because it has a huge narrative. This is in the depths of the bear when everyone was losing faith and like everyone is going to die, yada, yada, yada. And as you can see here, Equalizer ballooned off of this. At its peak, it was around 50 million in market cap in TVL. Now this is a lot because if you take a look at the token itself, it really doesn't have a huge market cap. It's around 322,000. Their catalyst was they airdropped several of the users, giving out different VE tokens, allowing other people to vote in their protocol, and some people came over to check it out, especially for the early Solidly users. And at its peak, it went to about $15, and if you bought at its low, I think it was like, at one point it was like 2 cents, you would have made like a ton of X's. I mean, this would be basically over 1,000X for you. And this is in a bear market. So seeing the success of Velodrome and Equalizer, you're going to be like, okay, well, Solidly, it definitely has a narrative. And this happened on February 3rd. So I started looking around for other catalysts, and you probably saw the video I made on SolidLiz. SolidLiz was another Velodrome fork. This one popped up around February 11th, February 12th. And it actually came onto the Arbitrum chain. They did have another VE33 fork. This was XCal, but here's the problem with XCal. The flywheel, it wasn't kicking off. It had been around since November 17th, 2022 in the bear market, and people needed a new shiny object with new tokenomics and a new flywheel with new incentives to bring more users over. And this is where these SolidLiz came about. And as you can see, at its peak, it went to around 120 mil in TVL. And if you take a look at the price went nuts in hand. It went as low as 2 cents and as high as like, it was actually, at its peak, it was like 80 cents, which is nuts. That actually it was lower than 2 cents. It was 0.002 cents. It actually was even lower than that. But if you were in Discord, you jumped in on this around 2 or 3 cents. If you guys want to jump in the Discord and see what I'm doing in the markets, there's a link in the description below if you guys would like to join into that. And the reason why I chose SolidLiz, I simply looked under the Solidly forks and looked in particular for some of the Arbitrum Solidly forks. And at the time, like I said, there was only XCal. Now, XCal didn't have that new shiny object, and I saw SolidLiz, and I was like, this is interesting. I know the tokenomics will be doing well, and people saw the success of Velodrome and Equalizer, and there will probably be somewhat of a success on SolidLiz. So I took the bet, I took the play, and I deposited into the protocol and played around, yada, yada, yada. It did extremely well. And of course, you're supposed to take profits and sell out and let the moonback ride, and it did extremely well. Now, of course, that needs to factor in, even though you make that 100x, 1000x, yada, 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 you need to make sure you take profits because nothing is guaranteed. There's always that chance of an exploit. There's always that chance of something going wrong. The tokenomics are miss awry. There's a newer shiny object. People go and pounce on that. Always take profits. There's nothing guaranteed in crypto. Even when you're looking at BTC and ETH, there's nothing guaranteed with that. So make sure you're careful and always capitalize on those profits as soon as you get them. So I chose Liz because I enjoyed using it. And second, it had the catalyst with Arbitrum. And third, it had some pretty good tokenomics. So now with the success of those different protocols, this also allows you to move and migrate into the next catalyst and looking for the next protocols. I noticed the success of these protocols. I remember Curve and Convex, how they did extremely successful. So in this route, I was looking for protocols that capitalize on the protocols that were successful. And one of those was Millennium Club, MCLB, and the F-Bomb token. If you guys have been watching the channel, you probably remember F-Bomb and how well they did. The reason why I like F-Bomb and the tokenomics on them, let me show you guys a chart so you guys can see what it looks like. At its peak, Phantom Bomb went to a little over a penny, coming from 0.0004 cents, which is like dirt cheap. Now, Fiery, the dude behind F-Bomb, I found him on Twitter, going into the Discord groups of Velodrome, Equalizer, just seeing what he was doing and taking over different protocols and helping them. SolidLiz was one of them that he was over there and early onto. So I used a protocol called DeFi Wars. DeFi Wars was able to show me the different voting power that these protocols had. And I picked up Millennium Club and I looked at it and I was like, man, they actually got a lot of voting power. Why is this important? Because this is free liquidity for them. They can vote onto the different pools and say, hey, look, I want liquidity over here. And they already have this voting power so they don't have to pay anything for it. And you can take a look at one of the Velodrome pools and take a look at F-Bomb. You can see here that it has a APR. Well, that's the voting APR. So let's go to liquidity so you guys can see what's up. If I go on the liquidity and look at some of the top pools, I noticed F-Bomb actually earlier, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, it was showing up even higher in like the top pools. I noticed that F-Bomb was showing up in some of the top pools by filtering by the highest APR. And it still is ranking up there. It's 91% APR paid in the Velo token, and then it also has a couple of other pools as well. And it was able to do this because it can vote for the pool and get liquidity at an extremely cheap rate because it's not having to pay for it. It can just vote for it. So I was like, all right, cool. Catalyst was these Velodrome forks doing extremely well and having this flywheel to where people are flocking over into using them. The second is I enjoyed using F-Bomb. Why? Because it was easy to deposit, yada, yada, yada. It was like, all right, this is a cool coin. This is fun. It has a good story. It makes sense. It's a deflationary token. If you guys want to check out the video, you guys can understand it. But it had the nice narrative in tokenomics to where, okay, I'm a farmer. I want to deposit into these pools. Well, it had a 1% tax on buys, sells, deposits, any transaction. So it makes sense that someone's got to buy it 1%, deposit 1%, withdraw 1%, and sell 1%. So that's a total of 4% that's going to be burned. And it creates this somewhat of a sustainability for the tokenomics to where it only burns, there's no extra inflation. The only inflation comes from these other solidly forks, like Velodrome, Equalizer, yada, yada, yada. And they were able to get on these different protocols early and vote on these different pools and earn a bunch of voting power, which gave them the ability to create this reflexive flywheel. So that was another example of one of these tokens. And I couldn't have gotten this without going into these different groups, like the Discord groups, Telegram groups, going into the projects of Velodrome, Equalizer, Solid Liz, looking to see what these other people are talking about, which led me to get into the F-Bomb Discord. I went in the F-Bomb Discord. I liked what I saw there. I saw what people were talking about. I saw what they were looking at. Then I went into those Discords to see what those people are talking about. And I laid this same broiler template of, okay, let's check DeFi Llama. Let's see the catalyst. Let's see what's up. And let's see if this narrative makes sense. And if it makes sense, then you deploy, place your bet. Now, of course, there is that chance it doesn't work out. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. The name of the game is to allow your winners to pay for the losers and let the winners ride. Of course, you need to take profits and always pay for that, but that's just something to keep in mind. You are going to run into losers. Don't get down, don't give up, keep playing, and don't over-invest. Now, of course, if you don't have the time to go in these different Discords, follow these different projects, build your own narratives, then I would recommend looking at an alpha group or a chat group. There are several of them out there. Just be careful of the pump and dumps. A lot of them will do that. I have my own private Discord group if you guys want to jump in that. The link is in the description below. It is the Patreon link. I talk about a lot of different projects similar to this. Now, of course, when the markets are sideways and when it's like a bear market type of thing, it's harder to make different plays because it's a more of a PvP environment. But in a bull market, it definitely pays off to do your own research and be active and engaged in the bear market, because these are where you're going to get these 100x, 1000x gems in different plays. So if you guys want to jump in that, there is a link in the description below. Some other really helpful tools, if you guys want to check out some of the tokenomics, some of the different holders, is you can use a tool called Bubble Maps. This allows you to see the holders of a particular token. You just type in the token you want to search, and then you pull it up and it shows you the different holders, and it shows if they are connected to each other. And then another one is Arkham Research. This one is in beta mode, but I'm working on getting some invite links. I'll drop them in the description below as soon as I get them. So if you're watching this video, it'll probably be in the description below so you can check it out. And the third thing to look to is Bitcoin dominance. This is going to be your telltale sign of if it's an altcoin season or if it's Bitcoin season. And actually, it is a bit counterintuitive. When you're seeing Bitcoin dominance increase like it is, that's actually the time to start looking for different altcoins to deploy to. Now, that's not saying like, hey, look, it's time to deploy, it's time to buy, yada, 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 because who knows when it's going to peak out, but it's time to do the research and look into these different projects. The worst time to buy the altcoin is when Bitcoin dominance is at its lowest. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but typically there is a reversion to the mean, and when Bitcoin dominance increases, the altcoins liquidity and tokens are being sucked out. As you can see here in June 2022, that was probably in the depths of the bear with the Luna collapse and all that craze. Of course, we had some altcoin action, had some fun, but typically when Bitcoin dominance rises, that's the time to go ahead and take a look and see what other altcoins and what other projects are out there and building your own narrative and your own thesis. Now, before we end this video, I did launch a NFT collection. If you guys want to go ahead and mint one of these, you guys can check it out on wisdom.ol. Mainly the whole goal of the project is 1, to establish a brand, 2, engage you guys as the community, 3, donate some of the proceeds to St. Jude's Research Hospital, 4, have a fun experiment, and yes, there will be future rewards to community members. And yes, some of the people that mint an NFT will be randomly selected and given a free 1-year Discord membership. So I will be giving those out at different intervals in time as the different NFTs are minted out. You can actually take a look and go to the About section and see what the whole project is about and see a couple of the snapshot of the different NFTs. But if you guys want to learn more about that, check out the Wisdom Online or wisdomol.net and you can get information on that. And if you guys want to check out some of the previous videos on different airdrops as well as different projects and other protocols, you guys can check out some of the previous videos. We made a couple of airdrop videos if that's your type of gig. And let's hit you guys with a Wisdom one-liner. Proverbs chapter 8 verses 10. Choose my instruction instead of silver, knowledge rather than choice gold. That's wisdom's call. Seek after wisdom, man. It's better than silver or gold. Peace.